I was 34, a software engineer who had built something substantial from nothing. My startup had grown from a one-man operation in my tiny apartment to a thriving company with 50 employees and a valuation north of $4 million. Then I met Amanda at a charity event 2 years ago. She was everything I thought I wanted. We connected instantly, shared similar interests, and had what I believed was a perfect relationship. When my family suggested a prenup to protect my business assets, Amanda reacted badly. "It feels like you do not trust me," she said, tears welling in her eyes. Something about her reaction felt off, but I ignored it. Before I continue this life-changing story, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever been betrayed like I was. Growing up, I never had much. My parents worked at the local factory, putting in 60-hour weeks just to keep our modest home. Their struggles taught me the value of hard work and financial security. I earned a full scholarship to college but still worked 3 part-time jobs to cover living expenses. After graduation, I launched my software company from my studio apartment, often coding 16 hours daily, surviving on ramen and determination. 5 years of relentless work paid off when our security software caught the attention of major corporations. The company expanded rapidly, and by my 32nd birthday, I had 50 employees and personal assets worth over $4 million. My parents could finally retire, and I bought them a comfortable home near the coast. Financial stability was something I had fought hard to achieve, making what happened later all the more devastating. I met Amanda at a fundraising gala for underprivileged children. She stood out immediately, not just because of her beauty, but her apparent compassion for the cause. At 28, she worked as a marketing director for an advertising firm and carried herself with confidence that commanded attention. We started talking about the charity, but soon moved to discussing our similar views on financial responsibility and planning for the future. "I believe in working for what you have and being smart with money," she told me that first night. "Too many people in my industry waste everything on showing off." That conversation was the first of many. We began dating, and the next 2 years were filled with what I thought were genuine connections. We traveled through Europe, went camping in national parks, and spent countless nights discussing everything from philosophy to our dreams. I fell deeply in love with her seemingly authentic personality, her laugh, and the way she always seemed to understand my perspective on things. Amanda appeared supportive of my work ethic and often brought dinner to my office during late nights. She seemed to appreciate the value of what I had built without being materialistic. At least that was the character she portrayed. After 2 years together, I proposed during our anniversary trip. We hiked to a scenic overlook on Mount Rainier at sunrise. When I knelt and opened the ring box, Amanda gasped, immediately saying yes and jumping into my arms. Her enthusiasm was overwhelming as she began talking about our future together. "We should have the ceremony at the Grand Windsor Hotel," she suggested on the drive home. "Their ballroom is perfect for the wedding I have always imagined." I was surprised by her immediate focus on an expensive venue, but reasoned that most people dream about their wedding day. Over the following weeks, Amanda became increasingly involved in wedding plans, suggesting we combine our finances sooner rather than later to make planning easier. She also pushed to shorten our engagement period from 18 months to just 6. "Why wait when we know we are perfect for each other?" she reasoned. Again, I attributed her eagerness to excitement, rather than seeing it as a warning sign. During a family dinner one Sunday, my father pulled me aside while Amanda was helping my mother in the kitchen. "Son, I know you are in love, but have you considered protecting your company with a prenuptial agreement?" he asked gently. "Your mother and I love Amanda, but the business is not just your livelihood. It supports your employees and their families too." His words made sense, though I felt uncomfortable thinking about legal protections in the midst of romance. Later that week, my business partner James expressed similar concerns. "Carl, I respect your relationship, but as your partner and friend, I need to mention something," he said during our lunch meeting. "A prenup is standard practice for business owners. It protects what we have built together." My closest friend Mark was more direct when we met for our weekly basketball game. "Have you noticed how Amanda keeps asking about company finances lately?" he questioned. "Last week at dinner, she spent 20 minutes drilling me about our expansion plans and valuation projections. The company lawyer finally made it impossible to ignore the issue any longer. Without proper legal protection, your spouse could potentially claim half the company in a divorce, forcing liquidation, or creating leadership conflicts," she explained. "This is not about trust. It is about responsible business management." That night, I carefully brought up the subject with Amanda after we finished dinner at my apartment. I approached it as a practical business matter, emphasizing that it was about protecting employees and investors. "A prenup." Her voice shifted from confused to hurt in seconds. "I do not want a prenup. It feels like you do not trust me." Tears formed in her eyes. "It is not about trust," I explained. "It is about responsibility to the business and the people who depend on it. After 2 years together, you still think I might be after your money." Her voice raised as tears streamed down her face. "Do you realize how hurtful that is? You are putting business before our relationship before me." Her reaction seemed disproportionate, making me feel guilty for causing her pain. I backpedaled immediately. "You are right. That was selfish of me," I conceded, pulling her into a hug. "I am sorry for even bringing it up." Amanda calmed down quickly after my apology, and by bedtime she was back to enthusiastically discussing wedding plans. I decided to drop the idea of a prenuptial agreement, entirely convincing myself that my concerns were unfounded and potentially damaging to our relationship. I had no idea that this decision would lead me to discover who Amanda really was, or that my attempt to preserve our happiness would ultimately expose a devastating truth. In the weeks following our conversation about the prenup, I noticed subtle shifts in Amanda's behavior. She began asking increasingly specific questions about my company's financial situation during dinner. "So exactly, how much equity do you still own? Have you considered selling some shares before the wedding?" she asked casually one evening. "My friend Jessica's husband made millions that way." Amanda also started suggesting we upgrade our living situation despite my condo being more than adequate for 2 people. "We should look at that new development in Westlake. Those homes start at 1.8 million, but they will appreciate so fast." Her eyes lit up discussing real estate in a way they never had before. Her spending habits changed too. Shopping trips resulted in bags from luxury boutiques, and she began wearing designer clothes to casual outings. When I commented on a particularly expensive handbag, she dismissed my concern. "We can afford it, right? Plus, I need to look successful when I am with you at business functions." The wedding plans expanded dramatically as well. Amanda's initial guest list of 80 grew to over 300 people, many of whom I had never met. She insisted on booking an exclusive coastal resort that would cost nearly 6 figures for the weekend. "It is our special day, Carl. We only planned to do this," once she emphasized with what I now recognize was unintentional irony. Around this time, Amanda formed a close friendship with Natalie, a woman she introduced as a colleague from another department. Later, I discovered Natalie had recently finalized a divorce with a substantial settlement from her ex-husband, a successful restaurateur. The 2 women frequently met for girls' nights that often ran late into the evening. Other concerning behaviors emerged. Amanda began taking phone calls in separate rooms, speaking in hushed tones. If I walked in, she would quickly end the conversation or change her tone entirely. Her phone gained new security measures, a longer passcode and fingerprint lock. She placed it face down when we were together and never left it unattended. "Just some work confidentiality protocols," she explained when I asked about the new security measures. Her work meetings increasingly occurred during evening hours, and she would return home with vague explanations about their purpose. One afternoon, I unexpectedly ran into her downtown coming out of an office building that housed several law firms. When I asked about it that evening, she claimed she was meeting a colleague for coffee in the ground floor cafe. The building had no cafe. These developments created significant internal conflict. I wanted to believe in Amanda, in our relationship and in the future we were planning. Questioning her felt like betraying the trust we had built. Yet my instincts screamed that something was wrong. I had experienced betrayal before. In college, my girlfriend of 3 years had been cheating with my roommate for months, while I remained oblivious, trusting both implicitly. That experience had left deep wounds that took years to heal. Was I now projecting those old fears onto Amanda, seeing problems where none existed? Each night as we lay in bed discussing wedding details, I studied her face, searching for signs of deception. Was her smile genuine? Did she really love me? Or was there something else motivating her enthusiasm for our marriage? The mental gymnastics exhausted me, but the red flags continued multiplying. After weeks of internal struggle, I decided to pay closer attention to Amanda's actions without confronting her directly. I needed proof either to confirm my growing suspicions or hopefully to put them to rest so we could move forward with our marriage on solid ground. The opportunity came when I was scheduled to attend a 2-day conference in Seattle. Amanda knew my itinerary and planned to use my absence for dinner with Natalie. The first day of the conference proceeded as expected, but that evening the next day's sessions were unexpectedly canceled when the keynote speaker fell ill. Rather than staying an extra night as planned, I caught a late flight home, arriving around midnight. I had not texted Amanda about the change, partly because it was late, and partly, I can now admit, because I wondered what she might be doing believing I was out of town. As my rideshare approached our condo building, I noticed the bedroom light was still on despite the late hour. I entered quietly, hearing Amanda's voice from upstairs. She was on the phone, speaking more animatedly than she typically did with me. Something in her tone, confident, calculating, almost cold, made me pause in the hallway. Before proceeding upstairs, I activated the voice recording app on my phone. "No, Natalie." He completely dropped the prenup thing Amanda was saying, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet house. You should have seen how quickly he backed down when I turned on the waterworks. Men are so predictable. I froze, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. 13 months is the sweet spot, she continued. California law makes the division more favorable after the 1-year mark, but we do not want to wait too long, or he might get suspicious. We file for divorce at 13 months. Exactly claim, irreconcilable differences, and with the right lawyer, I will walk away with at least half of everything. My legs nearly gave out as I leaned against the wall for support. Every suspicion I had tried to dismiss came rushing back with crushing validation. His company alone is worth millions, and that does not include the real estate and investment accounts. Amanda laughed softly. And get this, he actually apologized to me for suggesting a prenup. Called himself selfish. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Each word stabbed deeper than the last. The woman I loved, the woman I planned to marry in 2 months, was coldly plotting to take everything I had worked for. I will need to act heartbroken for a while after filing, she continued. Play the devastated wife who just wanted her marriage to work. The courts eat that up. Then came the final blow. And no, I am not worried about him finding out about Jason or Michael. He trusts me completely. Why do you think I pushed so hard against the prenup? Anyway, once the divorce is final, we should celebrate in Bali. I can certainly afford it by then. I had heard enough. With the recording still running, I silently retreated downstairs and out the front door. I spent that night driving aimlessly through the city, my world completely shattered, the recording playing on loop, as I forced myself to accept the painful reality. The relationship I had cherished was nothing but an elaborate con, and I had nearly fallen for it completely. I sat in my car until sunrise, the recording permanently burned into my memory. Each playback sent waves of nausea through me. The calculated deception, the cold discussion of timeframes optimized for maximum financial gain, the casual mention of other men. It was all too much to process at once. The initial shock felt like being hit by a truck, a complete physical and emotional system shutdown. My chest constricted painfully, and I struggled to breathe normally. This person I had loved so deeply, imagined building a life with, had been meticulously planning my financial and emotional destruction while smiling to my face. After hours of driving, I found myself outside my friend Mark's house. It was barely 6 in the morning when I knocked on his door. One look at my face told him everything he needed to know. "You found something," he stated rather than asked, ushering me inside. I wordlessly played the recording. Mark's expression shifted from concern to outrage as he listened. "You need to stay here for a few days," he insisted afterward. "Clear your head and figure out next steps. But Carl, whatever you do, do not confront her yet." Mark was right. A premature confrontation would only give Amanda time to prepare countermeasures. Strategic thinking was necessary despite my emotional devastation. I sent Amanda a text, claiming my conference had been extended, giving myself breathing room to plan. The following days became an excruciating exercise in deception. Amanda continued texting, normally sending venue photos, and asking about invitation designs as if nothing had changed. Each message required me to respond with fake enthusiasm, while containing my rage and heartbreak. "The Westcliff Gardens venue looks amazing for the ceremony, babe. Cannot wait to see you there in your dress." I wrote my stomach, turning with each false word. Our phone calls were even harder. Hearing her voice, now recognizable as performative in its affection, made me physically ill. I fabricated conference details while she shared wedding updates, each of us lying for entirely different reasons. "I miss you so much," she would say. "The bed feels empty without you." "Miss you too." "Just 3 more days," I replied, wondering how I would manage to look at her without revealing everything I knew. The worst moment came during a video call when she spontaneously modeled lingerie she had bought for our honeymoon. The performance, clearly designed to maintain my infatuation, made me excuse myself to the bathroom, where I vomited from the stress of maintaining my facade. While keeping up appearances with Amanda, I sought counsel from several trusted sources. I met with Patricia, a top-tier divorce attorney recommended by a colleague. "This recording is gold," Patricia said after listening, "though we need to discuss the legality of how you obtained it. However, since you were in your own home and not specifically setting up surveillance, we might have some leeway." She outlined strategies for protecting my assets and company, emphasizing that our current focus should be on preventing the marriage entirely rather than preparing for its dissolution. James and I discussed implications for the business, creating contingency plans to shield the company from any potential claims. We accelerated some pending structural changes that would further separate my personal assets from the business. "I always thought there was something off about her," James admitted, "but I never imagined this level of calculation." My parents were heartbroken but supportive when I played them the recording. My mother cried not just for my pain but at the betrayal of her own growing affection for Amanda. She sat at our table, ate our food, accepted our love. My father said, uncharacteristic anger in his voice. All while planning this. Further investigation revealed disturbing patterns. Natalie was not merely a friend but apparently something of a divorce coach. Through careful research, I uncovered her involvement with 3 previous divorces, following similar patterns: short marriages to successful men, ending in substantial settlements. She and Amanda had known each other for years, not months, as Amanda had claimed. Despite having supportive people around me, those weeks were among the darkest of my life. I cycled through grief stages with volatile intensity. Moments of overwhelming sadness would suddenly transform into blinding anger. Doubts crept in during vulnerable moments. Had I somehow misunderstood the recording? Was there an innocent explanation? Could I have done something differently to make her truly love me? Mark found me one night sitting in his backyard at 3 in the morning, staring blankly at old photos of Amanda and me. "I keep looking at these, trying to see if there were signs from the beginning," I told him. "If her smile was fake even then." "You cannot torture yourself like this," he said. "Some people are just really good liars. This is not on you." Several times I nearly broke character during interactions with Amanda. When she casually mentioned combining our bank accounts to simplify wedding expenses, I almost confronted her on the spot. Another close call came when she suggested I add her name to the deed of my condo for practical reasons. Each night brought new nightmares. Each day required renewed commitment to my plan. The psychological toll of living a double life appearing in love, while nursing a devastating betrayal, nearly broke me several times. Through consultations with my attorney business partners and closest friends, a plan gradually formed. Rather than a messy public confrontation, or simply calling off the wedding with a private revelation, I decided on a more definitive approach. Amanda had meticulously crafted her deception. My response would be equally deliberate. First, I secured the recording, creating multiple encrypted backups stored in different locations. My lawyer confirmed the specific legal standing of the evidence and how it could be used. Second, I moved critical personal assets into more protected positions, following legal advice about what actions would appear proactive versus reactive in potential future proceedings. Third, I scheduled a private meeting with Amanda's parents, with whom I had always had a good relationship. Though devastating, they deserved to know the truth before the public revelation that would follow. They were understandably shocked, her father breaking down when hearing his daughter's voice on the recording. "We did not raise her this way," her mother whispered, visibly shaken. Finally, I coordinated with the venue for our rehearsal dinner, arranging specific technical details for what would become the most memorable evening of our relationship, though not in the way Amanda had planned. As the rehearsal dinner approached, I maintained my performance as the excited groom. Amanda remained completely unaware, continuing to make expensive purchases for our future home and discussing honeymoon plans. She had no idea that in just a few days her carefully constructed world would collapse entirely. The weight of carrying this knowledge of planning this revelation was almost unbearable. But remembering her cold laugh, when discussing how easily I had been manipulated, strengthened my resolve. This was not just about protecting myself financially. It was about standing up for myself against someone who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be drained and discarded. The rehearsal dinner was held at Le Ciel, a 5-star restaurant with panoramic city views. Amanda had insisted on this venue despite its exorbitant cost overriding my suggestion for something more intimate. Now I appreciated the irony of the setting for what was about to unfold. Amanda arrived looking radiant in a designer dress, playing the role of blissful bride to be with Oscar-worthy precision. She circulated among guests, accepting congratulations and compliments with practiced modesty. Watching her performance, knowing what I now knew, was surreal, like observing an elaborate theatrical production where I alone had read the true script. "You look distracted," she whispered during a brief moment alone. "Wedding jitters." "Just taking it all in," I replied, maintaining my own performance for a few hours longer. Her parents appeared visibly uncomfortable, avoiding lengthy conversations with their daughter. They had agreed to maintain composure until my planned revelation, though the strain showed clearly in their tight smiles and minimal interaction. 50 of our closest friends and family members filled the private dining room. The long table was elegantly decorated with flowers and candles, creating the romantic atmosphere Amanda had specified. Everyone who mattered to us was present, including Natalie, who sat near the middle of the table occasionally, exchanging knowing glances with Amanda that I now recognized for what they were. Throughout the appetizer and main course, I participated in conversations, accepted well wishes, and played the part of the happy groom. Inside, however, my heart raced as the moment approached. I had rehearsed what I would say countless times, yet anxiety still coursed through me. As dinner concluded, and before dessert was served, I stood and gently tapped my glass for attention. The room quieted, expecting the traditional affectionate speech from the groom-to-be. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight." I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "Having all of you with us means everything. Before tomorrow's celebration, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on my relationship with Amanda." Amanda beamed up at me, clearly anticipating sweet sentiments. Natalie looked smug, probably thinking about the financial windfall her friend would eventually receive. When I met Amanda 2 years ago, I thought I had found my soulmate, someone who loved me for who I am, not what I have. I paused, making eye contact with various guests. I believed we shared the same values, the same dreams, the same vision for our future. Amanda's smile faltered slightly, perhaps sensing something off in my tone. But I recently discovered something that changed everything, and I feel everyone here deserves to know exactly who Amanda really is before we proceed with tomorrow's ceremony. Her expression transformed from confusion to alarm. She half rose from her chair. "Carl, what are you doing?" she hissed. "I am simply ensuring transparency," I replied calmly, then nodded to the restaurant manager who stood by the sound system. The recording began playing through the speakers. Amanda's voice filled the room crystal clear as she discussed her 13-month plan, the strategic timing for maximum financial gain, and her other romantic entanglements. The color drained from her face as her own words condemned her. Guests' expressions shifted from confusion to shock to outrage. Natalie attempted to slide away from the table, but was blocked by other seated guests. Amanda's father covered his face, while her mother stared down at her plate, unable to watch her daughter's humiliation, despite knowing it was deserved. When the recording finished, the silence was absolute. Every eye turned to Amanda, whose perfectly applied makeup now streaked down her face with tears. Real ones this time. "That is not. You do not understand," she stammered. "It was just talk. Natalie and I were just joking around. Joking about defrauding me, about the other men you are seeing, about manipulating me emotionally to avoid a prenup." I kept my voice level despite the turmoil inside. "That recording was from the night you thought I was in Seattle. I came home early and heard everything." She switched tactics, suddenly lurching toward me, grabbing my arm. "Please, Carl. We can work this out. I love you." That conversation was just stupid talk. It did not mean anything. I gently removed her hand. "The wedding is off, Amanda. Your things have been packed and moved to the lobby of our building. The doorman has been instructed to provide you access until tomorrow evening. The engagement ring, which legally remains my property until after the wedding, should be left with him as well." She collapsed back into her chair, sobbing, as the calculated facade finally crumbled completely. "You cannot do this to me. After everything we have been through, after everything you planned to do to me." I corrected quietly. "I am actually thankful I discovered this before the wedding rather than 13 months after. You inadvertently saved me from much worse pain." Turning to our guests, many of whom sat in stunned silence, I continued. "I apologize for the dramatic evening. Obviously, there will be no wedding tomorrow. Please enjoy dessert if you wish, though I understand if you prefer to leave." I placed enough cash on the table to cover the entire bill, plus generous gratuity, then walked out with as much dignity as I could muster. Several friends followed me out, offering support and expressing their outrage on my behalf. Mark placed his hand on my shoulder as we exited. "You handled that like a boss," he said. "How are you feeling?" "Like I can finally breathe again," I replied honestly. The weeks that followed were challenging but healing. Amanda made several desperate attempts to contact me, oscillating between tearful pleas and angry threats. Her messages went unanswered as I focused on rebuilding my life. The emotional aftermath hit in waves. Some mornings I woke up reaching for someone who was never really there. Other days brought clarity and gratitude for my narrow escape. Friends provided crucial support, ensuring I was never alone during the lowest moments. My parents called daily their unconditional love, a stabilizing force. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the company I had built. New projects provided healthy distraction, while therapy sessions helped process the betrayal. I joined a support group for survivors of relationship fraud, finding both comfort and perspective in others' stories. Gradually, the pain transformed into valuable wisdom. I learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. I recognized that protecting yourself legally is not about lacking trust, but about respecting yourself enough to establish healthy boundaries. Most importantly, I discovered my own resilience, the capacity to face devastation and still move forward. 6 months after the rehearsal dinner revelation, I ran into Amanda's mother at a grocery store. She hugged me, tightly, tears in her eyes. "You deserved so much better than what she tried to do," she said. I want you to know we raised her with better values than that. I do not know where we went wrong. We all make our own choices, I replied, finding I no longer harbored anger toward her family. Today, a year has passed since that night. I am still single, but open to the possibility of love again. The experience changed me, but I refuse to let it harden me. I approach relationships with greater wisdom rather than suspicion, and I have learned that true love includes mutual respect for each other's boundaries, emotional, financial, and otherwise. The hardest lesson was accepting that sometimes people we love deeply never really existed as we imagined them. The Amanda I loved was a carefully crafted character designed to appeal to me. The real Amanda remained hidden until that late-night phone call. Yet despite everything, I am grateful. Grateful for the painful wisdom that saved me from greater heartbreak. Grateful for friends and family who stood by me. Grateful even for the recording that exposed the truth, however difficult it was to hear. Have you ever had your instincts warn you about someone but ignored them because of your feelings? Looking back, did you notice red flags that seemed obvious in hindsight? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story helped you in any way, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. Remember to trust your gut. It is usually trying to protect you. Thank you for listening, and I truly hope my experience helps someone avoid similar pain.